Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Jennifer Stevens, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Thank you.
Great to have you. We've talked about having you on for a while, at least as long as your mom joined us about, wow, how long has it been?
It's been a while.
It's been almost a year, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like it's been almost a year.
Yeah, and so here we are. You're ready to rock and roll and tell your unique story.
I am.
I know some of it, but I don't think I know all of it. So we'll explore it and you share what you're comfortable sharing. You are from where?
I'm born and raised New Orleans, Louisiana.
Now, is that the proper way to say New Orleans?
It is.
It's not Nolans?
It is not New Orleans.
All right, so New Orleans.
It is New Orleans, yep.
Don't say it as obnoxiously as I just said it. And so you have fond memories of New Orleans?
I do. New Orleans is a great place to visit. I love the food. I miss the food, and lots of memories there growing up. Yeah, I have some fond memories there.
What were you doing when you were like 10, 11, 12?
10, 11, 12.
Besides going to school. And I should mention that you and I know each other from work, and your mom is in the room but off mic, and we expect to hear from her 5 to 15 times.
I'll go with that.
During the recording.
At that age, I think I was playing cabbage ball.
Hold on. You can't just say cabbage ball and not tell me what that is.
So it is like, it's the ball the size of a cabbage, literally. It's outside. Very similar to baseball, softball, but it's a cabbage ball.
But it's bigger than a softball.
It's the size of a cabbage.
Okay. But it's not actually cabbage.
It's not actually. Y'all don't have that up here?
No, ma'am. We did not.
It's cabbage ball. Yep. So,
it's softball with a bigger ball.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, yep.
Right.
So I remember playing cabbage ball and just outside, roaming the neighborhoods, playing with friends.
Why cabbage ball, not softball? Was softball a thing too?
I don't really remember softball being a thing.
I think it was age. It was age appropriate for your age group, and then you graduated to softball.
Okay, right on. How long did you play that?
Several years as a young child. My mom was my coach one year. We did terrible the year she was a coach. We only won 2 games that year.
Two out of how many?
The whole season.
Like 2 out of 15?
Like 10, 15,
Yeah.
and the only 2 games we won were the ones that she wasn't there for. So that was how that season went.
Do you lay those squarely on your mom, all those losses?
No, it was a tough year for her. I remember the colors were black and red. I was a 9 that year, so a little bit out of the age group that you asked me about. But it was the year after my parents separated, so that was she went into coaching cabbage ball.
So leaving your dad, you separated.
Yep.
And she really got into cabbage ball, but not so much that your team was very good.
Correct.
Got it.
Not so much at all. The team was actually terrible.
And is the ball actually round? Because
it's round, yeah.
Are cabbages round? I don't think I've ever bought cabbage.
Cabbage is round.
All right, we spent way too much time talking about cabbage ball. Yeah, it's all good.
You have to Google it.
Were you considered a student, like a nerd, a jock? Neither.
No, so I was a very opinionated student. So I wasn't a nerd. I wasn't a jock. I was pretty known by many. Outspoken.
Where do you come by that?
My mother and my father.
Both of them?
I'm a product of both of them.
Okay.
I came up in the criminal justice system. My father was a sitting judge for my entire life until he retired. And my mom was his minute clerk for many years, and then she finished her career working for the district attorney's office. So they're both pretty outspoken individuals.
And curious, too. And caring.
Yes, curious and caring.
It's hard to be outspoken if you don't care about whatever it is.
Very passionate about most things that I do.
Is that a Louisiana thing, or is that your family, or is that both, maybe?
I think that could be both. Could be both. Probably my family. I don't know about a Louisiana thing.
I'm making that up. I
was gonna go with you.
New Orleans? Is it a New Orleans thing?
New Orleans people have lots of hospitality. They tend to be very caring and considerate people.
All right, right on. Very cool.
Let the good times roll.
All right, so what was high school like for you?
High school was I remember having a lot of fun times in high school as well as some challenging times. So, one interesting, unique fact about me in high school is I was actually emancipated at the age of 16.
I'm fascinated by this.
So I legally became an adult as far as the courts were concerned when I was 16 years old, and put myself through my senior year. I was not a junior in high school, so I went from 10th grade to my senior year, and worked 3 jobs when I walked across stage at my high school graduation. So it was definitely not your typical high school experience. Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit. Did you want to skip your junior year, or were you told by the school that you should skip your junior year? What were the circumstances that led to you skipping your junior year?
Somehow along the way, I ended up with more credits that were needed in order to not have to go to school during my junior year. Up until high school, I had come from a product of the private school system. And then once I reached my high school years, I decided that no longer was the best place for me. And then I wanted to go into public school. And we tried out several different schools around the course of a few years. And between all those different schools, I acquired a lot more credits than were actually needed. I have always excelled in my academics, and when it came time to go through my junior year, I had already had enough credits accumulated to not need to take that year in school.
Got it. So let's back up. Are you comfortable talking about your parents breaking up when you were younger?
Yeah.
All right, so you were 8 or 9 when they separated?
I was 8.
You were 8, and what was that like for you, going through that?
So the separation, the divorce was extremely difficult for me. Backing up a little bit further, my mother had me a week before she turned 40. My father was a little bit older, so really in the home, I really was an only child. I had siblings from previous marriages that were much older. So for those first 8 years, I really had a wonderful childhood. You know, Christmas morning, woke up, there was a sea of presents. I remember doing lots of things with both of my parents, very engaged. And after the divorce took place, the rug was really ripped from under me. I think both parents tried. My father purchased the home just a few blocks away from my mother's house to remain close, but very, very quickly, I believe the same day that my parents' divorce was final, my father was remarried. And very shortly after that, my stepmom was pregnant with my younger sister, which was a blessing many years later. But being, 8, now at this point, 9-year-old child, unfortunately, I didn't see it as a blessing so much at that time.
So you kind of lost, or there was a tough relationship there with your father, it sounds like, and with your mom. You remained tight, or were things strained with both parents?
No, so...
And I'm asking this knowing that Ann is over here.
So my stepmother became really my saving grace right after the divorce. So through a lot of my teenage years, my mother became the enemy, and my father became the man that, I continued to try to ensure I remained in his good graces and did no wrong.
And why was mom the enemy?
Probably because she was the conditional one. Not realizing that, now at 36, being able to articulate that.
Yeah, now you're trying to raise your kids
right
with a similar mindset.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But teenagers don't, or even preteens don't react very well to that.
Right.
Especially after a divorce.
Correct.
Like that. All right, so let's get back to the emancipation, which just, I don't know, you're the only person I know that's been through the process of emancipation. Tell me a ton about that, because it's completely new for me, and I imagine most people that will listen to this.
So it is a full process. You do go through the court system. Both of your parents have to agree to the emancipation, and you have to prove that you can support yourself financially in order for the courts to sign off on the emancipation. During that time period of my life, I felt like I was a responsible adult, which if there's any young audience listening, I can tell you that at 16 years old, you are not a responsible adult. There were lots of hard lessons learned at that time in my life. And my parents, I'm sure, felt like they no longer wanted to be responsible for some of my actions leading up to the emancipation.
Gotcha. And then so you were working 3 jobs, I think you were telling me the other day.
I did. I was working 3 jobs. So I was working at Poncho's, which was a Mexican restaurant. So I was waiting tables. I was working at Cafe Du Monde actually overnight, which is coffee and donuts, which actually worked really well.
Wait a minute, is this over the summer or were you in school?
No, I was in school.
So you were working an overnight job and waiting tables after school and going to school.
Correct. Yep. And Cafe Du Monde, actually, although it doesn't seem like it would be the best gig out of all of them, that was great. Lots of tourists go to Cafe Du Monde. New Orleans is famous for our beignets, and people would go in there to sober up. And lots of people were intoxicated, so they would tip you a lot of money overnight.
Yeah,
yes, it's great, right?
If you're in it for tips, you need to be around drunk people. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And then I also worked at Brobart, one of the local grocery stores.
So wait a minute, you were working 7 days a week, it sounds like?
Some weeks I'd work 7 days a week. Some days I'd work only the 3 jobs on weekends.
Okay, gotcha. And you were still a good student despite the fact you were working at 3 different places.
I was. I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA.
Nice. You got me beat
Yep.
on that. All right, so you graduated at 17? Were you 17 when you graduated?
I graduated at 17.
Okay, and then what was that? What was on the horizon for you after you graduated?
So, once again, I come from a family of criminal justice. So I had always thought growing up that I was going to go into the judicial system myself. So I thought that for a long period of time I was going to go into law school at some point in my life. But really, before I went into law school, I had a lot of my own purpose and passion as to why I wanted to do some of the things that I wanted to do. So I really had a passion to go into juvenile probation and parole. So I, right out of school, right out of school, started out in community college, Delgado Community College, took a lot of classes in criminal justice, and took an internship in Orleans Parish Prison.
Tell me about the prison experience.
That was quite the experience. So I worked in booking. So we took the inmates directly from the police right after they had been arrested, and would ensure that they did not come into the prison with any narcotics or weapons or anything along that aspect. And then we would book them for processing.
You're doing a normal pat down. You're not doing an extreme search.
Correct. We would do a normal pat down, and with that job, I worked from 7 to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then went to school during the day.
That's
so
brutal.
Hard work has always been in my nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of hours.
You got that from both parents?
I got that from both parents. Yeah.
All right, right on.
Yeah.
Do you have any unusual stories from your time working in the prison?
Yeah, so once again, I've always been an advocate and very strong in my beliefs. And there were a lot of things, even looking back, that I just did not agree with that happened within the prison system. And it's very easy to come in and work a day and have your own frustrations from the outside world and easily take that out on inmates, right? Because it's your word against theirs, and ultimately you have an inmate locked up and you have a correctional officer, so most of the time the side is going to go with a correctional officer. So after witnessing some of this behavior for quite some time, I felt like I needed to be an advocate for the inmates, right, and what I believed was right, and to stand up for that. So I did just that, and tried to make some headway within the booking intake department, which was favorable for some, not always favorable by others. Got into a few altercations myself with inmates, just because that's the nature of the business, whether you are self-provoked or not self-provoked. And then once I realized that even though I tried to do right as much as I wanted to, and was not always getting the support that I needed to make the changes that I wanted back in 2004, 2003, I decided that this was probably not the best place for me.
and you're working a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, which means a lot of the folks coming into the prison overnight are under the influence of something.
Yes.
And sometimes pretty hard substances that dramatically change behavior.
Correct, but I'm a big believer that our behaviors should not have been impacted by that one way or another.
No, I agree, but it's probably a lot to deal with physically, though, I'm guessing.
Well, right, correct. So altercations do happen, and I believe that correctional officers have the right to defend themselves. But, you know, you can sometimes have like 1 or 2 correctional officers support you or break up an altercation versus like 10.
Right. Yeah, there's a proper reaction, not an overreaction. That's warranted.
Correct.
Yeah.
So about this time, I got married rather young.
How old were you?
I got married at 19.
19. I had no business talking to polite society, much less getting married.
I got married at 19. So right around this time when I was deciding that Orleans Parish Prison was not the greatest place for me, my then fiance had taken a position working in collections for the cable companies for telecommunications space, and had really started to excel within that industry. So I decided to pick up some interest in the business platform and really started to get intrigued within the business side of things. So he had got offered a promotion with that company and started traveling all across the United States, opening up offices for them. So very shortly after our wedding is when we were relocated to Richmond, Virginia, and that's how we moved from New Orleans to Richmond.
Did everybody attend the wedding?
They did not. My father was not present for my wedding.
Is that a sore subject?
It's not a great subject.
Yeah.
It's not a great subject. Yeah.
Had you reconnected with mom at this point?
Oh yeah, mom and I had never not reconnected.
Never disconnected.
Yeah, we had never disconnected. She has
Disconnected
always
on different levels at all these times. It was never a disconnect.
No, I got you. Yeah, that's what. No, she's good. I wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah. So where was I? So we moved out to Richmond, Virginia, and I transferred. At this point I was going to VCU. I picked up a minor now, so now I was going to minor in business. So all of my electives were on the business side. I was going to major in criminal justice, minor in business. Still wanted to go into juvenile probation and parole. But this system that we had moved and been transferred to Richmond, Virginia for was so large that he was not able to manage it all on his own. So I decided to take a position with the company that he was working for as well. We moved here in March of 2005. 4 or 5. And after 4 months, my mother actually presented us with the question of, can you do this on your own? You've been running this company so well for somebody else. Do you think
it's a fantastic question that every parent should ask?
Do you think
Seriously,
that you can run this business yourself? And without hesitation, the response we gave was yes, we can do
Both
this.
of you were like, we're in it to win it.
So he was more yes. I at the time was more
It's scary.
It's very scary, right? And once again, like, I had my own goals in life. So I had already kind of started dabbling into the business world, but it was interesting, but once again really wasn't my thing at this point. So a few weeks later, unfortunately, there was a disagreement between my ex-husband and the previous company, and they did not have a non-compete clause. And we circled back around the conversation of, did we think that we could run the company ourselves? And we decided to form a company overnight. And
Can you share the name of it?
Threestep Collections.
Okay.
And we were very blessed that my mom provided funding. It was a loan. And our client was,
Did you get a good rate?
I got a great rate. Yep. And our client was a net 90. So what that means, I'm sure most everybody is aware, is for whatever work that we did, we would not see a payment for 90 days, right? But we had to pay all of our employees and for all of our supplies and vendors, et cetera, et cetera. So we started the company, and at that time we didn't know who our client was going to be. We just knew that we were going to have this company. And looking back on it, we really had no idea how to run a company. We just knew that we could do this work. So once we had the company formed, we went to our client, who we were involved with a telecommunication space, and informed them first that we were going to be leaving the company, and that we had left the company. I'm sorry, we had given our notice that we had left the company and that we were going to branch off on our own. And we submitted a bid for the work that we had in Richmond, Virginia. And we were blessed enough that we got the contract.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual for our first contract to be, a $500,000 contract.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So we literally turned 24-hour days into 25-hour days. We started on our living room floor in our house, and I was 20 years old at the time, and grew that company into 234 employees across 17 different states.
Which is about the size of our current company.
It is.
Yeah.
And, it seems like it was so long ago. In reality, it was 3.5 years ago when I closed that company. I ran it for 13 years. There was a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And the one thing that I can tell you is the life of a business owner and the perception of a business owner are extremely different. I don't know if I can describe one, just the amount of stressful nights, right? And just wondering if you're making the right decisions, and knowing that whatever decision you ultimately make is going to impact that many people's lives. But then at the same time, knowing that whatever right decision that you make is also going to have that same positive impact on those people's lives. So it had some of the greatest highs that I've ever had in my life from a positive aspect, as well as some very some of the lowest lows that I've ever had in my life.
High risk, high reward sort of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. High risk, high reward.
Well, let's go back to the beginning real quickly. So it was just you and your husband.
Ex-husband.
Ex-husband. At the time, your husband. Mm-hmm. And were you just the two of you for a while, or did you hire people almost immediately?
We hired people almost immediately.
Because it was a call center business, essentially.
So at that time, there was no call center. We grew it into a call center. It was just feet on the street, so just field technicians. Back then in 2005, in the telecommunications space, we would go door to door to collect money for the cable company. And
that's hardcore.
If you were not able to collect payment for the cable company, you would collect the cable equipment or do the actual disconnect of the cable. So you would climb the telephone pole and actually disconnect their service. It was before digital was a thing.
Right.
So once again,
not that long ago, actually.
No, not that long ago.
No.
So we knew we had to hire a lot of people because the size of the contract that we had just taken over was pretty significant.
So if there was a technical issue, would you solve for the technical issue, or would your ex-husband?
So on the tech side, he controlled the business. So he controlled all of that aspect. I controlled all of insurance, payroll, paperwork, call center once that grew. And then anything once we branched off into the digital space, so like CRM, that all fell under my umbrella.
So you had to learn a ton, and you had to learn it quickly. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of your decisions had a lot on the line every time you did something different.
Absolutely. In the first year, and once again, I was a child, really. So there was only one executive that stayed with us really after the first year. I mean, our attorney, we fired. CPA, fired.
Wow. Can you talk about why you fired him?
Well, really, in reality, I think it's probably that I don't know if it was so much their fault as it was just us not really knowing the questions to ask or really what we were looking for. But I felt like they did not take, us seriously when we hired them to represent us. And once again, when you are interviewing with a 20-year-old who has just started this company, you're probably thinking to yourself, this company is not going to be around and it's probably not worth my time, right? So, I remember our first year doing taxes and the CPA didn't talk to us about making quarterly tax payments or what we should be doing.
What kind of CPA did you hire?
Well, right. And there was things that I didn't know at that time. So really just, there's two sayings that I've really learned to live my life by. And the first one is fake it till you make it. In the first 5 years of my company, that's all I did was I truly just faked it till I made it and read a ton of books, went to a ton of seminars, podcasts, YouTube. That really wasn't a thing back then. So read a lot of books, subscribed to a lot of publications, read a lot of magazines. And the other one is, my favorite quote is, when you want to succeed as much as you want to breathe, that is when you become successful. And just became...
That's a hardcore way of viewing the world.
And my definition of succeeding has definitely changed through the years, but that's true, because how much is it worth to you? So once again, firing these professionals, yes, they should have guided me better and they should have asked more questions, but at the same time, shame on me for not knowing what I didn't know either. So as I learned more about what I needed to know, I knew the questions to ask.
Sure, but when you were interviewing them, you were 20, it sounds like. And when I was 20, I was trying to figure out where I was going to buy the next 12-pack of beer.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't interviewing CPAs and lawyers.
Right.
In fact, I don't think I interviewed a lawyer until I was well into my 30s for the first time.
And they took advantage of that. So my accountant stuck with me to the very end. So I had the same accountant from the day that I opened the company to the day that I closed the company.
All right. So how long was the company opened?
13 years, from 2005 till 2018.
Do you want to talk about how it ended, or is that not a fun topic?
Sure. No, it's a great topic. It's a great topic because it led me to where I am in life now, brought me closer to the Lord. I have an amazing husband, a beautiful daughter. So I believe everything in life happens for a reason. So once again, we've talked about our ups and downs, and how do we define success in life. So there was one portion of my life where I really defined success by title and money, right? How much money do I make? How much money do I have in my bank account? What are my assets? What type of vehicle do I drive? And by this time, right, I have kids. I had 2 boys, and life was really just passing me by. And my husband at the time and I, we were basically living in separate places. We had an office in Miami, Florida, which he was at, 3-4 months at a time. He would come home and see the kids for special events.
Like birthdays.
Like birthdays, Christmas. They had things at school. He was involved as far as the kids were concerned. But not a normal, it wasn't a normal, like...
Dad wasn't always around.
Dad, right, correct. Yeah. Loved his boys, but Dad was not always around. And once again, you asked me about the tech side, and I want to make sure I answer that question correctly. So when I answer that, I was referring to tech, like as far as like disconnecting the cable, like that piece, right? But through the years, it shifted, and it became very technical as far as they were no longer climbing poles to disconnect. They were no longer writing on work orders. It became like 21st century, and it was going through CRMs. You would go to a device similar to like Salesforce, and it was actually like technical as far as what you would think of tech.
You went from analog
these
to
days.
digital.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that shifted in our company. So it went from he was doing 70% of the work. I was doing like 30, still able to go to school.
When you say work, you mean the technical work or all the work?
So when we first started the company, I was still in school. I was doing like the paperwork, payroll, insurance, office stuff, but the bulk of the work was in the fields. Through the years, there was a complete shift where it was more 70-30. So there was really no time left for me. And when I looked around, I was no longer able to do the things that I had enjoyed doing anymore with my company either. We were very heavily impacted by the Affordable Care Act. I felt like we had been very heavily impacted by a lot of our local and federal legislator. Collections industry is very heavily regulated. So there were a lot of things that had changed, and I was not able to engage as much with my team, and I was losing that time with my kids. So success no longer was about a dollar to me. It was more so about my family. And one day we were together, my ex-husband and I, and we were driving to one of our clients in Atlanta, Georgia. He flew, but if he could remain in control and not fly, he would. And we were on our way to see them for just our quarterly review. And we were about halfway there, and I looked over and I said, I'm done. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm done running this company. And I said, I've been done for a long time, but I have no idea what I'm doing in this car anymore. Mm. And I said, are you done? And there was nothing. And I asked again, I said, are you done? And he finally said yes. And I remember I tried to call my mom right then, because she is my rock and partner and everything in life. And I didn't get her. So I immediately called my brother, because if I didn't tell somebody right then that second, the words would never come out of my mouth. And I called my brother and I said, I need you to know that I'm done running this company. There's nothing that'll ever be worth it to me anymore. And I need to make sure that somebody's aware. And the next day we walked into our client. We held the highest save rate percentage in the entire region. And for some of our contracts with this client, we held a very large portion of their volume of work. And it really is unheard of within this industry to go in and basically terminate a position with a client. So we walked in the next morning.
Because you were making money from that client, right?
We were making. So we walked in the next morning and we gave our notice. And by contract, we only had to give a 30-day notice. But it's
kind of weird to be giving notice as co-founders.
Very weird. Yeah. But we had agreed that we knew that it was going to take a long time or could potentially take a while to replace us in some areas, and that we'd be willing to work as long and as hard as we had been through the relationship until they could replace us. So one of our clients, we were their national business partner. So we were their only business partner for the call center and fields. And it took them 9 months. So from the time we gave notice, it took them 9 months to replace us. So in hindsight 2020, a lot of people have asked, did you sell? What did you do? I understand, for those of you listening to this portion of the podcast, was it the best financial decision at that moment in time? Absolutely not. Once I took a step back and reevaluated. There were some things that we were able to do different with some of the other contracts that we had, other than that one client that we had already gave notice to. But the point was, if I wouldn't have done it that day, my life wouldn't be where it is today.
And you weren't happy.
I didn't realize how unhappy I really was. Because when you're a business owner, at least when I was a business owner, every day is a great day. So when I walked into the office, all my employees saw was everything was perfect. And it didn't matter what was going on in my life prior to walking into those doors. All they saw was that when I walked into that office, everything was great. They saw no different. So unfortunately...
That's great. That's great for everybody but you.
Yes. And it took me a very long time to learn, this might be surprising, how to have emotions. Mm. Because I had suppressed...
Who is this Jennifer you're speaking of?
Right. And I said, I will never suppress my emotions again. So in my mind, what I thought was going to have happen is I was going to go back to have a family. And we were going to go work our way to the top again somewhere, or we were just going to be managers and we were going to have a relaxed life. And I mean, I remember going through this time thinking, God, it is going to be amazing going to work somewhere and working, 50, 55 hours a week and actually being able to take a vacation, because I had no idea what a vacation was. Mm. And unfortunately, one of us remained humble, and one of us didn't know how to cope with not being on top. Mm-hmm. And I immediately started looking for work and opportunities. And unfortunately, that wasn't the same for my kid's father. And I think addiction kicked in pretty quickly. So although the words came out that he was ready to be done with the company, that ultimately became a decision that I made and not that he made. So once we realized that there was no company, it became very obvious that there was no marriage, that it was just a business partnership. Oof. So within a year, we dissolved the company and we dissolved the marriage. And we both completely rebranded as two different people.
Wow. I have no concept what it's like to go through any of that. Are you going to start another business someday?
No, never.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Nope.
I'm not speaking from experience, just a lot of people that I've talked to that have done it. Some have succeeded, and the journey they look back on fondly, but when they really think about it, it's really tough stuff.
I love the experiences I have. Now that I work in the real world, it has been very interesting to me, because I've always just thought everybody knew what I knew. So I remember the first job that I took prior to my current position was in an outbound sales call center, and they were changing their phone system, and they were getting a new dialer platform, and I jumped right in, and I was like, talking to the other managers, you all don't know how to program a dialer? Because to me, owning my own company,
you had to know.
I got in the trenches. Like, I wanted to test the product. I wanted to make sure that it was the best fit, and how did it work? Was it the best bang for my buck? So I just have assumed that all of the knowledge that I had from the business world was just normal knowledge that everybody had. I had no idea.
No, the people that you were working with were pretty good at politics, probably. Maybe not so much at the day-to-day actually getting work done. I'm guessing. I don't know any of these people.
I don't know if they were good at that either, but...
Oh, maybe not. Okay. So, were they good at anything?
Well, there were other sales managers. You're talking about
the sales, yeah.
There are other sales managers. I don't know if they're politic people.
Oh, gotcha.
I was just talking to other managers.
Gotcha.
It was my first job after I left my own company, so it's just a manager level job.
And your second job after that company, after you owned your own company, is where you work now.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
okay.
only been 3 years.
You and I started the same day.
We did.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
We did.
And we're still on the same team.
We're still on the same team. Yeah.
And we went from ops to sales.
We did, and that's exciting.
That's a weird thing for me. It is exciting.
It's exciting.
Weirdly exciting. Yeah. 52, and I joined a sales organization for the first time. It's good times. Cool. All right, so you have lots of kids in your life. Let's talk about your oldest son.
So if you want to talk about my oldest son, this can get a little bit interesting. So my oldest biological son is Triston, and he is 15.
Triston with an O-N at the end.
Triston with the O-N, Triston. But backtracking a little bit, Jeremy, so my ex-husband had 2 kids, and they were 4 and 8 when I came into their life. And unfortunately, their mother really was not present for the majority of their life. So Jeremy, I'm still very close with, and he still reaches out when he needs motherly advice. His mom is still not involved, and his father passed away last summer. So CJ and Jeremy.
We can come back to that because that story's incredible to me.
So CJ and Jeremy are the oldest, non-biological, and then Tyler, which is Jay's son, and then Triston, my 15-year-old. There's a lot going on.
A lot going on there. All right, you mentioned that your ex-husband passed away. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I'm an open book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you and I were working together when this happened. You just want to start, I guess, from when you got the call.
Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack just because, anytime I have an opportunity to mention the Lord, I always take that opportunity. So one of the best things that has happened to me, like through the closing of my company and through this journey I've been on, and it has brought me really close to the Lord. I was born and raised Jewish. I'll always claim Judaism from a heritage perspective, but I am a believer in Jesus Christ. So prior to my ex-husband passing away, I had several dreams that I had received a phone call in the middle of the night. I don't know if you know this portion or not. Mm-hmm. In the middle of the night, saying that Casey had died.
Several times you had this dream.
Several times I had the dream. This is going to give me goosebumps, and I know you don't know this portion. And anybody that was in the ops meeting this morning hopefully will remember this. So I had actually had the conversation with my amazing husband, Jay, to let him know about my dream. Like, I've received this phone call, and when I get the call, like, we need to be there for my kids. And this isn't the first time that I've had dreams come to light and happen to me. So at the same time, we were doing ops morning team meetings, and we would have a theme of the day question. And it was a Friday, and the question of the day was, if you could ask one person one thing, what would it be? And I'm pretty outspoken. I don't really hold back. So there's not too many things that I have questions to, that I don't have answers to. But, I touched on addiction a little bit. So it had been about 1.5 years since my kids had seen their dad before they saw him on his deathbed. Mm. So my question that I had was how, that I was going to present Monday, was how can you live with yourself every day and look in the mirror knowing that you've abandoned these kids? And Saturday night I got the phone call.
Wow.
And I think that was my answer. And I think my answer was he couldn't. And it was his time. And he wasn't living the greatest life. And I know he loved his kids dearly. And I believe that's why he stayed away, which I'm very thankful for. And so I got the phone call from CJ that his father had been in a terrible car accident and had been ejected through the vehicle, and that they didn't know that if he was going to make it or not. So the part of my dream that was left out was I didn't know that he was going to be on life support, and that his power of attorney had not been updated. So that left me. So my husband and I immediately woke up and had a conversation about what to do and where to go next. And my biggest concern was my kids. And we decided that we would have a conversation with Triston and ask him what he wanted to do. And he wanted to go home and see his dad. So Jay and I flew CJ in from Texas and his girlfriend to see his dad. And Jay, Triston, Chance, Harlee, and I all loaded a plane in the middle of COVID and went home and brought him home to see their dad, who was basically skin and bones on life support. And we pulled the plug, said our goodbyes, and we buried him. My current husband and I buried him and made sure that the boys had a proper goodbye. And we couldn't have done it any better. We sent him out in a fleur-de-lis urn, and yeah.
You were the executor of essentially everything.
Yeah, nothing had been updated.
And were you on your own dealing with all that, or did you have folks around you that could help you do some of that? But the bigger things were all on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, my husband was amazing. And it is a blessing, truly. I can't imagine going through what I went through and it be like my spouse, right? It was very difficult because of my kids. But when I was done, and I know this isn't everybody, but I had forgiven him for everything that had happened and transpired between us. And when you're no longer emotionally connected to somebody, as far as like the planning of the funeral and going through that process, I think it definitely made it a little bit easier on me, just because there was no longer that emotional connection there. The most challenging portion was, my kids, and I was very honest. We've always been honest with my kids because I needed them to know that it's not their fault that their dad had stopped communicating with them. So they knew that their dad was an addict, had turned into an addict, literally overnight. So the hardest part for us was that my kids, they had always hoped for the day when their dad turned back into the dad that they knew. Because for many years, he was an amazing father. And I'm sure one day the boys will listen to this, and they need to know that their dad was an amazing father. And he tried very hard, I am sure, to do well on his own. So the hardest part was me watching them, knowing that day would never come for them. But Jay has been an amazing stepfather. When you look at them together, you would not realize that he's not biologically dad. And for those 2 weeks that we were there, he really picked up a lot of the heavy for us. He was at the hospital with us. He was there literally every step of the way. And not only did he have my biological boys that leans on him. He had the 2 older boys too that have no biological connection to me at all.
Jay sounds like a stud.
He's a stud.
I've never met him.
He's a stud.
I should probably meet him now that I've learned so much about him tonight. Tell me more about Jay. How'd y'all meet?
We actually met at the ranch.
What is the ranch?
It's a bar.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a bar.
All right,
We
you
went
met
out
at a bar.
one
A
night.
lot of people meet at
We
bars.
met at the bar. I hate saying bar, but we
That's
met
it.
at a bar.
It is what it is.
We met at a bar. He's a body technician. He's in the trade fields. So he's a great guy. I don't know where.
Does he own his own company?
He does not. He.
Based on what you're
is a
telling me, that's a
lead-
good thing.
I say he does not because he would I think like to one day, not his own company, but he would like to have his own shop, which is a company. Let me not try to play it down. It's like, it can be small. It doesn't have to be so large. I'm like, no, let's pass. You have a good thing. So he's the lead body tech for a collision shop around here.
Okay, nice. And he likes doing that kind of work.
Loves it.
Yeah.
Loves it. He's been in the industry over 20 years.
Met at the ranch. Where's the ranch? I've never heard of it.
On Hall Street.
Okay.
I live in South.
This is south of the river.
I'm an
kinda
hour
stuff.
away from you.
You're not close.
No, 55 minutes.
Did it really take that long?
Yeah, it's okay. Yep.
What?
Yeah, I'm out in Mosley.
Oh, yeah, you're like the 3rd or 4th person from Mosley that's driven over here. I feel bad every time somebody tells me they live in Mosley, but it's all good.
It's all good.
We're here now. This is the second time you've been here.
Yeah.
And I got to figure
Where's my
out,
mom?
does Ann remember her episode number? We should mention that. All right.
No. Did I have it? Did I have
You had a number,
episode number?
Ann, yeah. Rob, are you looking it up? Thank you.
Text it to me, please.
Did the on-air thing throw you off?
No.
All right.
Do I seem thrown off?
No, you do not. All right, so you grew up Jewish, emancipated by the age of 16. When did Christianity enter the picture for you?
Yesterday.
No, not yesterday, Mom.
2 months ago.
A few months ago, I was baptized, but
And, well, hold on. When you say baptized, you're
I
talking
mean water baptized,
like full body.
in front of the entire yes,
Yeah,
full body.
that's how I was baptized. I was 14, which is interesting. Baptists do it with teenagers, and the theory is that they're old enough to understand exactly what they're going through. And some do, I think, and some maybe not. But you certainly know what you're going through when you're older than 14.
Yes, I'm well aware with it. No, Christianity came into my life towards the end of towards the end of closing the company. Gosh, that was another nightmare. Yeah, there were lots of signs why we should have closed down the company sooner than we did. Everything comes in threes. There's signs. You don't listen. You're not talking to me. And so probably about 3 years prior to closing the company, when I was told to look into the bank accounts.
You discovered some discrepancies.
Yeah,
Sounds like.
there were some discrepancies.
And that's when you started down the path?
Well, that's when I pinpointed it because that was another like intuition, I guess. I was spoken to.
Gotcha.
About Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but when did Jesus come into your life, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 years, like 3 years before I closed the company, 2 or 3 years before I closed the company. So like 5.
What was the catalyst? I
years,
mean, what was introduced to your life that changed for you? Did somebody suggest you go to church with them?
Well, no, people have always tried to get me to go to church, and I've always said, no, I don't have time. I've made up excuses, but I've always, within the last 5 or 6 years ago, I've always believed in Jesus Christ and accepted him as my Lord and Savior because I feel like I've been prayed and he has listened to me. There's been signs. I just haven't been as open or outward. I guess maybe like kind of on the fence maybe about it, but I believe, I've been a believer. And for numerous reasons. I mean, I started going to church and being very active and involved within the last year, but I've been a believer within the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Kind of. Let me continue to explore a little bit. You didn't learn it from your mom, right? Christianity was not talked about in the
Oh, well,
home
my
growing up.
dad's Catholic.
Oh, your dad's
so
Catholic. There
my
it is.
Yeah. My dad's Catholic, so I've always celebrated Christmas. I've always been exposed.
You celebrated both.
So I've always been exposed to
Not
everything.
necessarily from her father, but from her mother.
My mom also celebrated Christmas growing up, and both of her parents were Jewish.
We're very ecumenically open.
Got it.
Jews.
Okay. Yeah. Was,
But I didn't accept that.
Was Christmas a bigger deal in the house than Hanukkah?
Always.
Always.
Okay.
Always.
But that's how I was raised.
Got it. Okay. That makes
My
sense.
parents
I might
were
as well
Jewish
just have
too,
been
but that's
Christian my
just
whole
how we
life.
were raised.
Got it. Say it again.
I might as well have just been Christian my whole life.
Got it. And now you're baptized.
Now I'm baptized.
All right. I do have to ask this. I can't imagine you've ever dreamed about me, but if you do, and something happens in the dream to me, I'm going to need you to tell me about it.
You got it.
Do you have any other dreams that ended up becoming reality?
Yeah, I've had a few of them. Well, the embezzlement, that was a real thing.
You dreamed about that.
Well, I was to go check exactly where to go look in the bank statement.
That's crazy.
Well, my recent dream was I closed that deal, so we'll see.
Yes. Now we're talking. Yeah.
Yep. See. Yeah, there have been a few of them. I have to really think. Yeah, I've had a few of them.
Yeah, that's not typical.
You may be psychic.
Yeah. Do you think you're
I'm
psychic?
a little psychic.
No.
You
No, I think it's just,
think it's because you're from New Orleans?
Voodoo.
No, it's not voodoo. It's just intuition.
I think you're a little psychic.
We'll see.
Are you a Saints fan?
Oh yeah, who dat?
So I do need to mention, and Rob, my crack research staff has told me that episode 36 was your mom's, Ann Kiefer's episode.
36.
So if you want to check out Ann's episode, it's 36.
Your age.
36. Remember it.
Now, Ann and you are both very nice, giving people. You told me, I think 2 days before the Tampa Bay New Orleans playoff game, that I was invited to go down to the Superdome and use the other season ticket that your mom has. And I'm like, oh my first reaction was, that's amazing. I would love to go see Tampa in a playoff game because it so rarely happens. And then my next thought was, well, if Tampa wins, I don't want to be there with Ann being really sad. It might be Drew Brees' last game.
It was horrible.
It doesn't. Yeah, it had to be horrible. And then I'm thinking, and if we lost, I came all the way to New Orleans to be surrounded by Saints fans after we lost. Like, neither scenario seems great to me, even though the actual game itself would have been amazing.
We couldn't even cheer for Drew.
Because there weren't enough of you, really? Or why couldn't you cheer for Drew?
There weren't enough of us. You were there.
Oh, I know. You didn't go, so I took your spot.
Well, you should have been the first choice, I think.
There weren't enough of us. We lost. We know it's Drew's last game. There are not enough of us in the stadium.
He hadn't officially announced it at that point, but
But we knew.
But people knew,
that
yeah.
We all knew that he was gonna retire. But it was almost like we are so devastated. Number one, that we lost. Number two, that we're losing Drew. That nobody knew what to do. We have on these masks. You don't know. We didn't know what to do because we wanted to cheer for him.
Sure.
All we wanted to do was cheer for him. Do you know the city still hasn't done anything?
That's crazy.
Never did anything.
I can't believe we haven't had a
We
Mardi.
never had a
I
parade.
can't believe we haven't had a
But
parade.
we haven't had anything.
Speaking of parades, that was another fun adventure in my life that I went on. So we owned a restaurant for a few years.
While you own the other company?
By the way,
Yeah.
you didn't even mention that I was a president of the three-step collectors. You didn't even mention it.
We're still
Be quiet the whole time,
and we're
you
still
never mentioned your mother.
we're still going in.
Mom, what did you do as the president? You gave us a loan. Thank you.
for everything.
We appreciate your contribution. We paid you back.
I want to be
So
president
we
again.
had there was a restaurant in New Orleans. It was a block away from Emerald's. My cousin and her husband at the time were going to be the executive chef in front of the house manager. And mind you, I had, except for waiting tables, the restaurant industry Not Jennifer. Not Jennifer's thing. Here we go with third person, okay? So
I know you're getting serious when you go to third person.
So they are remodeling the restaurants. They have also taken out a loan for my mother, and it's going to be amazing. And a month before the restaurant opens, we are having to take the executive chef off of the restaurant. So what we did for 3 years was we did 2 weeks in Virginia and 2 weeks in New Orleans, and we got lots of books on how to run a restaurant and went to lots of seminars and ensured that we completed our lease agreements and ran this restaurant for 3 years and watched some amazing parades go by the restaurant while the president over here did very little, and we made sure everything stayed afloat. And
Wait, how old were you when this was happening?
25, probably,
Okay.
probably by this time.
All right.
You weren't know how old.
There was no Chance. I didn't have Chance, but Triston was 3 or 4. My cousin and her husband go through a divorce through this process. It didn't,
Sounds like a theme.
we're 6 months in the restaurant, and that was another pretty amazing experience. Learned a lot there. That was a fun industry. Lots of theft.
Another lesson and not what to start again.
Lots of theft in the restaurant industry. Collections much better.
Restaurants are hard. Very hard.
Food and
Yeah.
alcohol walk right out the door.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure it did.
Oh yeah,
Got to keep everything under lock and key, I
But
think.
it was fun and it was
it was a lot of
beautiful.
fun.
It was a beautiful place.
Fun and fleeting, it sounds
We
like.
had fun.
Fleeting.
We had fun.
All right. What are your memories of Mardi Gras?
Oh, I love Mardi Gras.
As
I
a
used to
kid,
go
as an
home every
adult?
year. I've always loved Mardi Gras.
All right, talk to me about your experiences with Mardi Gras, because it's not the experiences I had as a guy who's not from there. I just came to maybe have a couple of drinks.
No, so Mardi Gras really is, it's family oriented. I have, my mom has always been involved with a crew,
What's the name of your mom's crew?
Sparta. I've been a lady in waiting. I've been a maid a few years. My boys have been part of the organization. They used to go home every year and ride. We're looking forward to going back this upcoming year.
I'm sorry. What does lady in waiting mean?
Like it's kind of debutante-ish,
It feels,
white dress.
feels very debutante-ish. Okay.
Like lady in waiting,
Got
very
it.
curtsy.
Debutante is exactly what you were.
Well,
That's
I might
all
not.
right. You thought you were a debutante.
That's what it
Run
is.
with it. Go with debutante. That's
It's debutante-ish.
I'm gonna tell the captain you thought you were a debutante.
It's debutante-ish. How else would you describe it? How would you describe a Mardi Gras ball?
You were just part of the presentation. It's just a presentation of the court. You're part of
How
the
do you
court.
describe it though to somebody that's never been to a ball? It is debutante-ish.
Well, okay.
We'll go with it.
Go
with
on,
it.
Rolling. You're doing a beautiful job, by the way. Beautiful. You made me cry.
This is why we can't give her a mic. Yeah, so the boys, we've had them and heralds. They don't appreciate that now. They had to wear tights, bloopers,
They had to wear tights
and
man
like
diapers.
man
Or
diapers.
man diapers.
What do you mean man diapers?
Those little,
I have pictures.
yeah.
I'll show you later. Bloomers underneath.
Like
their-
they blow the trumpets.
It sounds emasculating.
Right.
They
They don't
so.
appreciate it now at all. They were little. They were young.
The captain had to wear it.
How young were they?
Like probably too old to be wearing man diapers, but
7 and
they
10.
were young.
I mean, it sounds like they could have some emotional scarring for this.
No, they loved it. They loved it at the time. When you throw a whole bunch of stuff off floats,
Yeah.
kids catch it.
All right.
It's
So
great.
when I come down to Mardi Gras, how much do I have to pay to do all this fun stuff?
I'll send
Well, when you
it.
calm down,
No, I'm
are
gonna
you gonna ride?
I'm gonna ride, and I'm gonna.
I keep asking her to give me a price. I'm still waiting.
The dues are probably $350, and then you spend another, I don't know, $500 or $600 for beads.
I told you it's a
So
thrill.
so you're in for 1,000. Sounds like.
$1,000.
Okay.
It's worth
Stay
it.
with me.
1,000 per person.
Stay with Ann, she says.
Yeah.
All right. I got to convince my wife, but right on.
She should be, let's see, if her surgery is in December, I think she'll be okay, but,
It's a matter of vacation time, I think, for her. We'll figure it out.
okay.
All right, so let's come back to the Saints real quickly. Who's a bigger fan, you or your mom?
My mom. I mean, I am a fan, but my mom, she's in her gold lame. She is in her umbrella.
You were interviewed, Ann. Sorry, I don't mean to make this turn this into the Ann show here at the end.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. So is Drew Brees staying in New Orleans?
I think he's already left.
He left?
I think he's in
I
California.
think he left right away. I think he paid tuition for 2 private schools, one in New Orleans where his kids were, and then one in San Diego where his kids went.
He played in San Diego for 2 or 3 seasons, but he's not from that part of the country.
No, he's from Texas.
That's right.
He's from Dallas. Dallas. And I think he went back to San Diego.
All right, so let's talk about what's going on in your life right now, Jennifer. How are your kids doing these days?
They're actually doing really well. You know, kids are amazing. Once again, you know, I'm blessed that they have an amazing support system here now. My middle son, I mean, we all have challenges, right? But we put him into a Christian school, and which has been the best thing for him. And he is learning how to process and deal with some of his emotions. But overall, they're good. They're great kids. I couldn't ask for better kids.
All right, so 10 years from now, they're going to be in their 20s. Harlee will be almost 12 10 years from now. But for your sons, what advice would you give them that would prepare them for their 20s?
So I'm constantly telling them now, make sure you contribute to your 401k at your first job.
Teach them about personal finance is what you're doing.
Yes.
Because the schools probably aren't doing that.
Yes, we're having those conversations with Triston now, who wants to be a NASA engineer. Not NASA, SpaceX. He's done with NASA.
He's done with government space travel.
Yeah,
it's all
exactly
about private
what he
space
tells
travel.
me. Yes, he wants to work for SpaceX. He wants to be a engineer. Space engineer. Chance wants to go into the trade industry. Harlee, we don't know what she wants to do.
Harlee, you're happy Harlee's walking and talking.
Yeah. Yeah, and enjoy every moment. Make every moment count. You know, nothing lasts forever. You know, unfortunately, they learn that lesson really hard in life. So whatever they do, make sure they love doing it.
Yeah.
And money's not the end all be all.
Money doesn't necessarily make you happy.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. In fact, it does quite the opposite at times.
Money can definitely be the root of all evil.
What else you want to talk about tonight? You want to let your mom come up to the mic?
What is she going to say?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Well, cool. Well, it's been fun talking to you. Nothing else you want to talk about?
So the last thing I'm going to put out there, just because I think it's important for most people to hear it. You know, I kind of touched on a 401k portion. I know that there's a lot of people out there that do not take advantage of it. The other thing I want to touch on real quick is life insurance. For those of you all listening that do not have life insurance or do not take advantage of life insurance, I'm not just talking about company life insurance. I'm talking about private life insurance. It is more affordable than you think. And if you have kids, I am definitely pro life insurance and advise each and every one of you all to look into it and get it.
Take the time to figure out your finances so you can afford it.
Yep.
And it's more doable than a lot of people think.
I have
Yep.
something to say. I have something I want to say.
Okay.
Ann's coming to the mic. And while Ann's coming to the mic, I will say I had one of my dad's friends when I was younger said, hey, put away $50 a month. And by the time you're 60, it'll be worth more than you can possibly imagine. So the point that you're making, the point that I'm making is start saving as early as you can. And it's never too early to start planning for later in life.
Absolutely.
What do you got, Ann?
Of course, I didn't take any of that advice when I was growing up because I'm sure my father did tell me that. I just want to say, Jennifer, you know, I listened to everything you said. You're an amazing woman. You're probably the strongest woman I know. You're probably the strongest woman I know. I'm not going to take a whole lot of credit for the way you turned out. But I know that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. I mean, I say it all the time. And I know that sometimes we try to beat ourselves up and beat ourselves down. And you're just like the phoenix. You just keep coming back over and over and over. And maybe we do that. And we are strong women. And for other women, I don't know if we teach our daughters enough how to be strong women. Just how to fly and just how to soar. But, you know, the events that have happened in your life, we didn't plan them all. We didn't. And God knows I wouldn't have wished them for you. But everything that you've done, you know, you've made amazing strides out of unbelievably difficult situations. And I'm not proud of all the situations you've been in. And I'm sorry.
Look, don't be sorry. I've had an amazing life, and they have made me into the woman I am today, and I could not be more proud than this woman that stands in the mirror.
She's stronger than me.
Well, she's stronger than me, but we are strong, and we've been through some really tough times. But we just have to teach Harlee. Believe me, she's strong. She has a wallop. But sometimes you need a wallop to get through this life. Mm-hmm. And we always can't depend on anybody else. No. And this one here, brains and beauty, the words don't always come out right, but who cares? She gets her point across, right?
That's right.
So I am very proud of you. I love you. And I just want to watch you soar more. And I hope I'm around for a long time. At home, our four-time governor, Edwin Edwards, just died. He was 93.
Wow.
He had the amazing highs and a few lows. But that just goes to show that anybody can be anything they want.
Yeah, that's right.
So we just keep rolling. So thank you for letting me take a minute of your podcast.
You're so welcome, Mom.
So
thank you for being an amazing mama.
That was a very sweet
You're
way
welcome.
to end it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer and Ann, for driving all the way out from Mosley. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Thank you
Awesome.
for having us again.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at SFTCOTUpodcast.com.